Today we're talking about why a true INFJ never regrets his NITI loops. So the NITI loop is an expression used in the INFJ world, and we actually all have it, so all 16 personality types, and it's always the dominantary loop, meaning for other types, for example, the ENFJ, it's FE and SE, for the ESTP, it's SE and FE, and for us INFJs, it's NINTI, which means that we bypass our second function and we go into these loops that pretty much get us into a very, very unhealthy behavior. So for INFJs, this very often looks like depression. It looks like, taking ourselves out of society altogether. We stay in our room. We don't want to have any contact because there's no part of us that wants to express anything. Everything that we do is that we continue the cycle of I'm trying to understand a situation. I'm trying to find a way out of it. And I continuously do this by removing all kinds of stimulation from my life so I can get a better picture of it. This actually leads to us being less connected to the real world. I've done this. This has been probably the most traumatic time in my life when I really went so hardcore in this. I really had a reality break. It's not like, I had to go to the doctor or anything, but it's like it really broke me down. It changed everything for me, and it's actually the reason why this channel exists. And that's actually why I'm saying that the INFJ never really regrets his NITI loops, because we actually learn from them. First off, if we're not able to recognize that we are in an NITI loop, we cannot regret it in the first place. And if we've gone through one, then we always take the lesson learned from it and change ourselves. This can be the most amazing thing you've experienced in your life, but you have to understand that it's going on. Otherwise, you just continue to play out the same cycle and you don't know what's happening. You feel like you're stuck and you can't move forward, and you're just pretty much waiting for something to happen. The healthy choice, of course, would be for the INFJ to start expressing themselves, although they don't understand everything, and that they say, I have to stop making some kind of sense out of it. The NITI loop very often happens in correlation with other people, so you want to understand a person, you want to understand how to get through to them, you want to understand how to be the best assistant to your boss, or whatever that situation might be. And in our mind, it has to work. There's something that isn't the way we expect it. What happens in our mind is we come up with a story, we create a logical system that is based on all the information we've absorbed through our NI, and with our third function, our TI, we actually make sense of it. We say, okay, that's a kind person, that's a person who actually likes me, that's a person who has good intentions. There's just something that isn't working here, something I haven't figured out yet. I just have to try harder. And we've all experienced this, but if we don't change in that moment, we always kind of go down that rabbit hole until we have no other choice but to change. And once you change, you never regret this. Because here's the twist. Here is what I have learned from working with so many INFJs through the years. These are the things we talk about in boot camp all the time. These are the success stories we experience all the time, that once you get a hang of it, this is going to be the best learning experience of your life. By the way, the boot camp is launching in the end of this month, so sign up for the waiting list. The link is in the description. And if you haven't done this so far, then download the free poster to the 5 pillars to an INFJ epic life so you know what this is all about, so you can start working on the 5 pillars to an INFJ epic life today. All the information you find a link in the description. But now back on point. So when do we stop this NITI loop? Well, we actually really much have to be forced into it. Our back has to be against the wall once at least. Now that I've experienced this once like so dramatically, I know not to go that far, because I know from experience that this is not a healthy thing for me or for all INFJs. But still, every single time I go into this direction, I learn so much about myself. There's so many things that I know that I cannot do anymore. Like, for example, trying to save somebody by diminishing my light, by making myself smaller, making sure other people feel good and don't feel intimidated by my presence. Like, I have learned that these things are not working and they are not healthy, but I first had to go that way because there was no way I would have been able to make that transition if I didn't go into the NITI loop. And looking at it from the MBTI socionics perspective, our third function is the function we are so in love with. It's the function that we actually completely overestimate, and it's the one we get addicted to. So I know for me as an INFJ, if I'm not careful, what am I going to do? I'm going to use the information I have at hand, and I'm going to try to make sense of it, and I'm going to hold on to this. And I'm not going to try to express myself in any kind of way way, because if I do that, I make myself open to criticism, I make myself open for judgment, and most INFJs really like to keep their distance. We like to look at things from the back. We don't like people knowing that we know certain things about them, or that they actually have qualities that we don't like so much. We rather keep it to ourselves. But every single time we try to keep ourselves small and we tell ourselves this is a normal thing because I actually just want to understand and I want to stay in my NITI bubble, the consequences aren't good, because actually life isn't turning out the way we want. We always hold on to something. Something has to happen, then this person is going to understand me. One day I'm going to get the job that I always wanted. I just have to continue and prove to others how well I actually am. And you continue this process until you recognize you're not getting anywhere with that. And that's the point where you say, okay, I'm going to start being creative. I'm going to let out my second function. For us INFJs, this is FE. And we do this in combination with SE. That means that we start expressing who we are, how we see the world, and we're willing to take the consequences that come with that, which are that people will first off judge you, and second of all, you won't be able to understand others so well. There's this trade-off of the second and third function. If we want to be whole, and if we want to continue growing, if we want to live that INFJ epic life, then that means that we have to be willing to put ourselves out there. And that does not mean that you have to start a YouTube channel, that you have to start your own business, none of that. This is just my way of doing it. That was what was important for me. But more than that, it meant that I wouldn't hide from people that this is the way I thought. Because a lot of people from my work knew I had this channel at some point. Like people that I liked knew about this channel. And at first it meant for me, okay, people are going to think I'm really weird. They're not going to understand what I'm talking about. They're not going to understand my thought process. And I had to pay that price because the alternative wasn't an option anymore. I couldn't keep myself small. I had to grow, and that was my outlet for it. But it wasn't so much this channel per se. It was that I wasn't hiding it anymore from other people. I wasn't hiding that part of me. And that also came out in the conversations I was having. It came out in my life choices. It came out in absolutely everything I did. It came out in all the priorities in my life. And that's what allowed me to grow. And none of this would have been possible without that NITI loop. I believe that we INFJs are able to go that route so deeply, to such an extent like other types wouldn't be able to. And I'm not putting the INFJ on a pedestal here, because the ENFJ, for example, can do the same thing with FE and SE, their first and third function. I have seen ENFJs go so deeply into this, get really aggressive, be able to express their emotions in such an extent. I was in awe. Like, this was self-destructive on such a huge level, but it was also something incredible that I know I would never be able to pull off. And similarly, the way I was able to step out of reality, be in my own mind, hold on to a truth, the TI truth that I always thought I had, and that was my way of looking at the world, and there was no way anything's going to shake it. I was able to hold on to this for so long until I really had to change my perspective, until I had to recognize, no, I have to actually pull other people away from their pedestal. I have to put myself a little bit higher in my own perspective. I have to be the leading role in my life. And because I was able to go so deep, I was then able to rise so high. And I've seen this not just with myself, I've seen this with countless INFJs, and it's an incredible power that we have to use to our advantage. We won't regret this because we take our lessons learned from this. We can fall really, really low, but that is our superpower. We can survive. But then it's on us to say, I'm not going to stay in that position where I'm continuously just going to stay down. No, I'm going to use this power to thrive. And we have the capacity to then switch it up, to then say, okay, I need to change my thought process. I need to change something about my internal logic. Something about it has been wrong, and I'm going to improve it. I've talked about that in the last videos as well. I know now how much I don't know. I know it way more than I knew it when I was younger. And so I'm open to changing my mind. I'm open to changing things that I believed were true like nothing else, because I know that there's no way I know everything about the world. There's no way that my way of looking at the world is going to stick with me forever because I allow myself to have new information and then express it as well. Because that's the other thing we always have to keep in mind. If you're not expressing yourself, if you always stay hidden and you just observe what is going on, you're not going to get new information. People will give you new information about how the world works when you express yourself and you evoke a reaction from that. You see how people react to your worldview, and that consequently gives you new information that you can then put into your internal logical system. The alternative is that you continuously stay in the same world that doesn't make you happy. You hold on to that same belief system, and it seems like the world never gets any better. Your life never gets any better. But I'm here to tell you, it doesn't have to be this way. I've seen this way too often with INFJs who thought this. I was one of them, and who then go through the experience, they watch my videos, they do boot camp, and I've just also seen it through comments, just people just experience the whole process and seeing how, no, there is another way. I can see the world differently. I can feel differently about my life, and I'm not going to regret any of those NITI loops because through that, I became the person that I am today. I am grateful. I'm glad I was able to make all of that happen, to experience all of this pain, because now I know myself that much better. Take advantage of your strengths, guys. You have the power. Use it. You deserve to live the INFJ epic life. Remember, if you want more help with this and you want accountability partners and a group that really supports one another, then join the INFJ Epic Life Bootcamp. We launch our next round in the end of this month, so sign up for the waiting list below so you get access to the early bird price. Remember to download the free poster, and if you want to watch another video now that is in alignment with today's topic, then watch the video Why the INFJ Always Has a Safety Net.